Hey, good morning. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. Welcome back to me and as well to you, those who are live here on Monday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you're catching this on the replay, still, welcome back. It's been about 2 weeks since we've been together for the Starseed ministry. And it's been about 2 weeks of me being off the radar, off the grid. I would definitely say not off the grid. I'm going to share a little bit of my story being in the Pacific Northwest over this last 2 weeks and my adjustment back to my life here on the East Coast. Just a little bit of personal sharing to give some perspective on how the last 2 weeks have been going. So I hope everyone is doing well. We just had an Aquarius new moon on the 21st. We have Uranus now direct, the planetary ruler of Aquarius, the day after. Venus and Saturn in a conjunction in Aquarius also yesterday, the 22nd. And if you're part of the Starseed Fellowship Plus and you've already gotten the weekly astrology that I put out on Thursday, just about this upcoming week and the Aquarian energy that is really, really strong, you know that it's time now, right? Things are going to be moving at the speed of light. And if there's anything about a Aquarian and Uranian type of energy, it's to expect the unexpected and to know that whatever is happening is forcing, in a lot of ways, individuation. So we're going to share a little bit about space weather, some of the earthquake activity, if you haven't been keeping up on that, and just making sure that we're continuing to familiarize ourselves with these basic structures and functions in our natural world. And there's a reading that I'm going to share with you today as well. So I hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for being here. Hi, happy 123 VZ. It's good to see you. It's good to see all of you here in the space, regardless if you're here in the live chat, if you're commenting, or just listening with the playback. I really just appreciate all of you. Truth be told, I am not 100%. I am in my own recovery mode. I'll share that story with you in just a moment. So, I sat down and did my morning routine, my morning ritual, my morning practice. And I was thinking to myself, wow, what will it be like? I haven't really gone into doing intuitive work for others in the last 2 weeks. And so I was a little apprehensive at first. I was like, oh, is the reading going to be, clear? Am I going to, have I managed to clear away all of the extraneous attachments and energy and all of the stuff that has come along and what's going on for me? And I did the reading and it was just like, wait till you see it, right? It's just bam, 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 bam. It was just perfectly aligned. And it's such a wonderful, beautiful, and grounding message for a time that we've known for a long time now that this was going to be the time, right? January into February is something I've talked about quite a bit for months and months now, that this was going to be the time that it picks up. So of course, Uranus stationing direct, especially in the sign of Taurus, I am not surprised that we are seeing lots of seismic activity. We saw that Pakistan went totally dark between yesterday and today. Not surprising with a Uranus stationing direct and this Aquarian new moon. So one of the things I'm showing you here on this image that I have in the background here is actually the image that I use for the thumbnail. So you can link to this image from the description box below if you're interested in learning more about it. But this is an image from a radio telescope that is labeled or called Meerkat. And you'll see why I picked this when we get into the reading part, of course. And this is the center of the galaxy in radio wavelength, right? And it's this telescope that's in South Africa, by the way, this Meerkat telescope that took this image or rendered this image based on the radio frequency coming from the galactic center. So I just wanted to bring your attention to that and see, what comes out for you when you look at this. And like I said, you can link to this image and get more information about all of this stuff in the description box below, regardless how you feel about the state of modern and mainstream astrophysics. The meerkat thing really stuck out to me, of course. And I didn't pick it based on that or based on the reading. It was just a happy little accident, as Bob Ross would say, when I decided to use this as the thumbnail. So I did spend about 10 days in the Pacific Northwest, in the Portland area. In fact, we were mostly, I don't think I went over to the east side of the river at all, except to fly in and out of the Portland airport. We spent most of our time, if not all of it, on the west side, beyond the West Hills. So for people who are familiar, this is where Intel is, the Hillsborough, Beaverton area. This is where my partner's family lives, and the house that he grew up in. And it was and still is, to a certain extent, a cul-de-sac suburbia neighborhood in that area of Hillsborough and Beaverton. Like I said, the Intel campus is there, HP is there, and for his entire life, up until about the time we left, which was about 2020, there was about a 3/4 mile stretch, and that's just in length. In terms of its square mileage, who knows? This very large plot of empty field space that had existed across the street from, the neighborhood that he grew up in for his entire life. Well, that entire square mileage has been sold and is being developed into a smart neighborhood, basically. And there used to be a path that you could take through some of that new neighborhood, but there was woods behind it and a trail, and it was part of a loop that we had been involved, that we would walk pretty much every day to get into a natural space from what otherwise is a much more built up and populated area, and it continues to be so. So that access to the woods is gone now as the smart neighborhood. When I say smart neighborhood, truly, it's an entire community or neighborhood that is on one Wi-Fi signal, right? Everything is connected in. These are fabricated townhomes and single family homes that are going for $700,000, right? I can't believe that people would pay for this, but they do. And there is obviously an anticipation of a massive influx of population into this area of Oregon. Otherwise, they would not continue to build it. And they're going to build like a brand new grocery store and coffee shops. Like, it's just going to be this whole self-contained smart neighborhood. So that itself was pretty enlightening. We knew that it was happening, but the extent of it has grown, in the last 2.5 years, I'd say, since we've left. So that was its own thing. One of the things that I and Seth as well, one of the things that was really palpable to us, at least, and you have to remember that he was born and raised in Portland and grew up in Gresham, which is the east side, if you're familiar. His family moved over to the west side, to more of suburbia, back in the 80s and 90s. So it was a different place then. And so his read on it is in some ways even more accurate. I lived there for about 15 years and really came into my intuitive mystical life in a really strong way through my relationship to the Pacific Northwest. And that's for another story in terms of the extent of it. But I will say that I was definitely courted by those energies, and they were not happy when it came to getting to the gate and leaving, and knowing that I probably am not going to be back for a really long time, maybe for the holidays again. Definitely important to maintain that connection to family, which was really great, by the way. I really enjoyed that process immensely. and catching up with people I haven't seen in a long time and seeing what's going on for them and how they're responding to the changes. But it seemed pretty clear that there's a shellac of business as usual in this area of people just like, oh, the everything has kind of settled and people are going on with life as usual, business as usual. But I assure you, it is a shellac, it is a veneer, and it is rotting from the inside. And that was something that we both felt pretty strongly. We went to our old neighborhood, went to our old places that we really enjoyed, and that was really cool too. We'll go into Pier Park, if you're familiar with St. John's and North Portland, the beer porch. I mean, there was just a number of places that were like, wow, these are the places closest to our heart. I mean, I was convinced that St. John's was going to be my forever home, North Portland. And when we went back there, I was like, wow. And it's always been kind of a working class neighborhood. St. John's was always its own thing. Way back, it was its own entity. And before the St. John's Bridge was built, there was a ferry service across the river at that point. So Forest Park is very close by and very accessible from St. John's. It's its own self-contained community, and it was always a little rough around the edges. But this is it really felt like it was regressed. It was shittier than usual, and that's saying a lot since it was that kind of edgy, kind of dirtiness of St. John's, that I really actually enjoyed. Right, it hadn't also been shellacked by the rest of the way that Portland, in my opinion, had been basically overtaken and infiltrated. So, but, St. John's, it definitely feels like it has taken a few steps back. And that was one of the main things. I was like, man, this place feels like it's rotting from the inside out. And even people who have been there and have been there as long as I was there and that we got to hang out with, people I haven't, seen in a long time that I had been and continue to be very close with. The idea here is that even they are ready to go. They don't feel like safe, right? And these are people who identify as non-heteronormative Portland, the Portland area has been a champion for non-heteronormative relationships and people, of course. And for them to be like, I don't know, like they're trying to get out of the country and they don't really feel like Portland's got it anymore. Of course, they were continuing to refer to the riots as protests, and that gave you a pretty good indication of where their minds still are about that whole thing. Like, people have not really considered the destruction to their city as anything but a byproduct of this revolutionary movement. So that said a lot to me as well. But definitely feels like it's rotting from the inside and out. And it's interesting. We'll see what happens. There was a pretty sizable earthquake in the subduction zone while I was there. I thought that was really interesting. It was actually the day I was out on the coast. I thought that was really interesting as well. And of course, the seismic activity is something we really want to be watching, and it is getting stronger. So when I left, it was all sunshine and rainbows. Everybody at the airport was friendly. TSA was super friendly and engaging. I was like, yeah. But the minute I got to that gate, it was just like, whatever energies wanted me to stay, they were going to make themselves known. And this is a story I'm not going to get into. This is something I shared with the Starseed Fellowship, of course, in their astrology report. See, I told you I am not 100%, because when I got back, within a day, sick, right? And within a day, and it was really sudden, and we had the exact same symptoms, maybe about 24 hours apart. And of course, flying, being in an airport, being in an airplane, frequencies everywhere, right? And then being in Portland, surrounded by people who made different medical decisions than we did. I mean, it was all a perfect storm. And seeing the possibility that maybe our layover was in Dallas, right? Texas may be subject to increase in, I don't know, aerial interventions, if you want to say. I'm really hesitant to use the actual verbiage, but that was going on as we had a layover in Dallas. So that was like the first thing I thought, because last year I got sick on the Aquarius new moon. the same way, except way worse, right? The standard symptoms. And it was like from my thymus all the way up into my head, and it felt like it was going to catch fire, and, vomiting and nausea. And it felt like the spot where you would jack into the matrix, like that was absolutely like the center point. And there's a lot of attachments that will happen in the back of the body that people are not always aware of, because they really focus on the front of their body energetically, right? Doing energy work and their chakras. But a lot of times those attachments are on the back of the body and need that attention as well. And we don't see it all, a lot of times. And this is where those attachments end up, making, just kind of burrowing in there. So there was a lot of things that led to kind of this perfect storm energy. And then I got really sick and I just had to recover. So Thursday I was like, oh, I feel great. And I'm going to go right back to work. And as soon as I finished the astrology report for the membership, it was like immediately. And poor Seth, we had to drive back from the airport the next day as he was going through it as well. And I just thought it was really interesting that I also got the same sickness, except much more condensed this time on the Aquarius new moon. The Aquarius new moon last year was the same thing. So it could certainly be a function of being an Aquarius rising person and having these new moons be in my first house in terms of my physical persona, the person I project to the world, my bodily appearance, things like that. But it seems, and Aquarius people, I promise, your new moon forecast will be coming today. I've had to recover, and I'm not quite there yet. So restoring the natural balance and harmony, this is a big part of today's reading. And another really strong theme that we're going to talk about is you can't take yourself out of the societal resonance when you're talking about Aquarius. So for Aquarius identified people, or you have strong Aquarius in your chart, you are almost forced to individualize and realize your resonance within this larger picture. And sometimes if that resonance is really, really strong, it will overtake you. So if you're a person, for instance, right, you're in a large group like a choir, for instance. This is just the way that I think about it. And you have a person who tends to like sing off tune consistently, right? They don't find themselves being in tune very often. Well, if you have a large enough group and a strong enough group that is resonating at this one pitch or tone, it will kind of overpower, right? It will overpower that one person or that one section that maybe is on its own really out of tune. And I, when we looked at the chart, and I'm not gonna really read the charts on the Starseed Ministry anymore. I'm keeping this broadcast at as condensed as possible, because I know that's what people want, and in terms of an offering. And so for those who want to get more deep into the astrology and the Catalyst Classroom, that's going to be for y'all. And you've made the investment, so I return I return on your investment by giving you more engaged and more packed in content. But so we'll talk about the astrology for the upcoming week, of course. But I'm going to keep it condensed, right? I'm trying. So there's just so much to talk about since we've been gone for the last couple, for the last 2 weeks. We haven't really been together. I haven't really done a broadcast. So let me see what else here. What else do I want to share? Let's just get right into the solar weather. And I know many of you are already aware of what's been happening and are paying attention and let's see here. I want to bring this up. Making sure that we're ready to go. Yes. All right. All right, so we saw that the Schumann had a nice little blast today, last night into today. It's been active. You can see that here. Oops. You can see that it hasn't been totally, there we go. It hasn't been completely dark and quiet. But we see a nice big blast today. Yes, last night into today. Actually, if we're looking at this in terms of Russia time, it was definitely yesterday. And just to make sure that we are looking at all the data, we see that it's, it's not like this outrageous amplification, but it's been pretty mellow, and then it amplifies up to 39 or 40. So what does that mean? That means the ionosphere is excited. What does that, right? Lightning does that. Increase in plasma does that, right? And so it got loud, and it amplified the field. The frequency of the field got loud and amplified. And I think part of that is, to be honest, I think part of that is because we are in a coronal hole stream right now. As you can see, there's a hole here and hole here. And honestly, I have no idea why it took spaceweather.com, which is the NASA-run space weather, why it took them so long to even identify these as this one especially as coronal hole. It was saying there's no coronal hole for days and days and days as I'm sitting here staring at it. So anyway, we're in the stream of it now. My guess is that this is what's amplifying the Schumann, causing ionospheric disruption, more lightning, more charged particles, and things are bouncing around basically. So just be prepared for that to start really making an impact. I'm sure the KP index is probably going to go up. Right now it's pretty stable, but I'm sure it's going to start increasing. So the thing I really want to share with you guys, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm sure many of you are already aware of this, but if you're not, we're going to watch it together. So this was on the day that the sun came into Aquarius. So we had some pretty remarkable transits leading up to this. Mercury stationing direct, Sun and Pluto conjunct at the last degrees of Capricorn before this happens, okay? And then the Sun comes into Aquarius, which, by the way, this is the sign, the zodiac sign, where the Sun is at its detriment. It's at its weakest. It's in the sign opposite of its home, which is Leo. And if you remember the new moon, if you were able to see the weekly astrology report, and if you watch the Aquarius new moon forecast, which I'm going to put up today, then you will see that the only thing in Leo opposing all of this Aquarian energy was Black Moon Lilith, the lunar apogee, exactly opposite of the new moon, like exactly down to the minute. So this sense of our own heart and the resonance from our own heart and the experience of sharing that is kind of an anchor in some ways, and keeping us connected to the capacity to share our experiences as there are unexpected changes that are coming. So or maybe they are expected, but we still can't control for them the impact necessarily. What we have the opportunity to grow from, which is the new moon, is a slow but steady lunation cycle that is going to allow us to integrate this capacity, which is to, face these unexpected circumstances, right? For all of the things that civilization has, and I swear to you, this coronagraph is going to show you exactly what I mean. For all of the things that society, civilization, our ideal human collective, the Aquarian energy, for all of the ways that it for everything that we can grow and build and technology and civilization, nature can take away in a hot second. And when we look at this, I want you to watch, right? This came off of the sun on the 21st. So let's watch it again, reset. Now this was massive. If this had been facing us, we would have been in serious trouble, okay? So, but it wasn't, thankfully. It was facing away. But there still may be some CME impact from that, right? The plasma shoots out into space, and you don't know how it's going to get, basically pulled back in by the interplanetary magnetic field. And there may be a glancing blow from this CME plus the coronal hole stream or the winds. So there may be some disruption, some extra this extra ionospheric disturbance. But this was also the day pretty much right before, right after I personally got really, really sick. And other people kind of reported some other symptoms too, which I thought was really interesting. Ooh, I'm getting a tone really strongly right now. Whew. Sorry, guys. I just felt like it was important to just to let you know, to let you know that was happening. So one thing that we are learning, I hope we are learning, I know I am learning, I am in no way an expert in this field, but I am learning, is that seismic activity is related to frequency, low frequency energy, electricity that has an impact on, waves moving through all the plates. Now, what I want to show you here is in the last 7 days, including the day of that huge solar flare, it really was more of a magnetic filament that just erupted. You see that in just the last week, there have been four 6-point magnitude and above in just the last week. And 2 of these, which is the Argentina one and the one that's in the Caribbean, both of those were on the day of this huge solar flare. So even if we don't get the plasma, even if we don't get the actual charged particles from the CME, the impact of the flare itself still and the eruption still affects us. I am fairly convinced of that now, just based on my own experience and considering how crappy I felt. And there were a lot of things that did not, I was out of my routine. I was in a different environment. I was, celebrating a lot. There was a lot more alcohol involved, and there was a lot of environments that I couldn't really control for. Water source that was completely different from the one that I use currently. So there were a lot of things that led up to my system being like, whoa, this is an overload, right? And unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because it's going to have a really, really palpable impact on all of us, even if we know that it's happening. This type of experience is just going to be that much more significant as we go through this lunar cycle. So what I'll say about the new moon in Aquarius, and as I get into the reading here, is that as we're learning with the lunar sessions right now and the 8 phases of the lunar cycle and the lunation, how do I fix myself? Sorry, guys. Well, I guess that's the end of me. So, and that's okay, because the real important thing here is for you guys to be watching and looking at looking at the reading itself. With the new moon in Aquarius, right, the moon is taking on the full solar energy, and then throughout the course of these 8 phases is going to basically mitigate that experience for us as material, as beings, as spiritual beings in this material experience. This is what the moon seems to function as for us. And we're going to learn a lot about this in the upcoming Luna session number 3, because this is where we get into all the esoteric, all the mythology, and really starting to unpack the different perspectives on the moon and how it is related to our spiritual progression and the dark side, the negative side, right? That the moon is, basically the Death Star, or it's not even real, all of the things. And I'm not going to say too much here either, because it's pretty clear that many algorithms have changed in the last week or so. I can see that, and I'm curious if anybody else is experiencing that too, like if they've noticed a distinct change in access to certain things. Just be aware that if you lose access to certain things, or if it's the internet or digital information in any way is changing, just know that maybe something else is going to come to your awareness to kind of fill that place. And that's something that happened to me today, actually. The tarot site that I often use, that website was suspended for some reason, but then it led me to finding one that I actually like a lot better. So I thought that was really cool. So the new moon in Aquarius, this is what I'm attempting to impart to you, is that you can think about, yes, the sun is not at its best in Aquarius. That's just all there is to it. It is about each of us resonating with the whole, right? If Leo and the sun represents the heart, then Aquarius represents the entire nervous system and cardiovascular system. And the heart is great, but if there is no system or network in which to pump the blood, which, by the way, is where the chi is in your body, is in the blood, now you understand maybe why blood magic perhaps is so important. And I have some things I want to share about that, but I'm not going to do it here. About that, there needs to be a system, right? What is the nature of that cardiovascular system? I mean, what is the nature of those blood vessels? What is the nature of all of the nerve attachments and the nervous system as a whole, right? I mean, the electrical impulses, the chi in the blood, and the flow of the blood through the body, that needs to be also strong. It has to be, able to hold that resonance as well. And if it can't, then it's going to short out. Just like if you try to put too much power through a system that doesn't have the right doesn't have the right transformer, or it's too small, right? It'll blow out the system. And I feel like that there's a lot there that you can take in terms of applying to your own life, your own health and wellness, and the way that frequency and resonance and energy in general can be experienced through the Aquarian aspect. So yes, the sun is weak here, okay? But the moon in the new moon in Aquarius, think about not necessarily being the humanoid in the Aquarian constellation, right? But the vessel itself, right? The moon is the energy within the vessel. And I think that imagery and that perspective, I think, is going to be really helpful in terms of making sense of where we're going, because I think Venus and Saturn, so they came into a conjunction actually, not that long ago, on yesterday actually, in 24 to 25 degrees of Aquarius. And the idea here is that it's a butterfly with the right wing more perfectly formed, right? The right wing being the left side of the brain. And perhaps there is a very conscious process of individualization that is happening. And one of the things I said in the astrology report that Venus and Saturn coming together in like this oftentimes is not a very good, it really reinforces where the holes are in the vessel, in your relationships, right? In your projects, in the things that matter to you, which is Venus. It's going to show you in your body, right? I often experience Venus transits as embodied, that energy of that sign embodied into my senses, right? Into this experience here. So it's going to show you where the holes in the vessel are, right? And that became very clear to me as I was struggling with my own health and wellness issues, just right as that was happening. And so the vessel, it's not, if the vessel has got cracks in it, it doesn't matter how intelligent, how smart, how civilized, all of the energy of the humanoid figure in Aquarius, the water bearer itself, right? And the sun can really be that for us. It can represent that part of us, right? The conscious expression, like the identification through our passion and our devotion. But it's, and truly, when you have this Aquarian energy, you do become passionate and devoted to the whole in a lot of ways. It doesn't matter how devoted and passionate and how much you've intellectualized this process. If there are holes in that vessel, it's just going to leak right out. Okay. And Venus-Saturn conjunction yesterday made that very clear. So it was also, to me, a wake-up call of like, okay, these are the holes in my vessel, right, that are going to be revealed to me, how to actually either patch them up, how to rectify that situation, how to, intuitively, how to adapt to situations that we don't control for by making sure that vessel is absolutely in one piece and has integrity. So where's Aquarius in your chart? It's going to show you that area where that needs to be addressed and dealt with. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, I'm going to bring up the first card here of our reading. As you can see, we have a meerkat here. Our Princess of Swords is back, and this is a very grounded, favorable, abundant. I mean, it's literally got the word abundance, as you're going to see at the center of the reading. So, but before I do that, I want to move over to the chat here. Mama Wolf Memories just getting here. I love it. Thank you for being here, and thank you directly for the care package. For the care package. You have no idea how much that has made the last week or like the last 5 days completely not suck. And I appreciate it so very much. And how much it reinforced like the people in my life that are there to just be part of, checking in on me, making offers. Hey, do you need this? Let me, can I offer you this? How are you feeling? Even just people reaching out and making those connections really means a lot. And we're going to see how much that actually is a big part of this process. The meerkat is about linking up with those that you trust and who are like-minded. The abundance card, as we're going to see, the Mercury in Cancer, the Three of Cups. This is celebration. This is love. This is joy. And the abundance comes from not our wealth of resource, but from our wealth of connection, of family. And I feel like that the nadir, the fourth house cusp in the chart, right, in the zodiac, the astrological wheel, it's what separates us from, either from AI, basically. And that's something that I want to expand on considerably in something different. But Mercury in Cancer, the Three of Cups, this is the abundance. So before we get ahead of ourselves here, let's start here with the Princess of Swords. So, the princess, right? We've seen her a lot. I feel Venus in the air signs. This is what the princess represents, right? Venus is the princess part, and then all of the air signs. So there is a sense of perception and curiousness, but also very serious and rigorous when we're talking about the air signs. And Venus does rule an air sign, which is Libra. So there is a connection here with Venus to the mental energy in terms of this balance point. And so this person, especially as a court card, we're coming into this situation. And I think that I got a lot of hits on Venus conjunct Saturn in Aquarius with this card in particular. So it's important that we see the opportunities here. Use our clarity and insight to cut through the bullshit, right? Stay true to ideals despite being treated unfairly. Boy, that's something that came out again, right to me personally. And I'm sure everybody will have a story that probably relates to this in some way in their life, depending on where you're going to find Aquarius as well, is that you may feel like you were treated unfairly. I definitely felt that getting on the airplane in some ways, and it really, really upset me. And the thing about this card is to remember to not allow your moods to rule you. And I will tell you what, my mood was shit the rest of that flight into the next day. And I was in a really bad headspace, all because of something that on the in the grand scheme of things was not a big deal. But I felt I was being treated unfairly, and it was pulling all of this negativity out of me. And I was just like, this is how attachments, this is how, energies that are lower fourth dimensional, for instance, that are not really, you still have a relationship with them, but they're not necessarily part of your higher self or for your higher good. They can influence you. And if you've ever been haunted or lived in a haunted place, one of the primary ways that that energy impacts people is not through the physical. It is through psychological and astral intrusion. So that was just my own story. But the main takeaway here is that we're coming into this situation where I think we have allowed ourselves to stay true to our ideals. And despite being treated unfairly in certain circumstances, we can all relate to that. in some way. We've been practical. We've been clever when dealing with conflicting opinions, right? That was a big part of going to the Northwest and being around people pretty much consistently that had a conflicting opinion about almost everything in terms of the surface world here. And coming at and staying true to it, even if you find yourself kind of locked in that position. And many people are waking up, and this is where they're at right now, is that they feel like they've been treated unfairly. There have been breakthroughs that I have been witness to in terms of family members and other people that to hear the things coming out of their mouths, I was just like, whoa, this last 2 years really brought all of this out. And the best case scenario here is the ethical will is the will of the universe, right? And not human ethics, right? We're talking about natural law. And even if you feel like you're being treated unfairly, it's so easy to means to an end, right? There's no right way to do a wrong thing. And that's where this energy, if it was reversed, can really keep you caught in the bullshit. So I see this as an indication that we have been cutting through the bullshit. We're using our clarity and insight, and we are staying true to our ideals despite being treated unfairly. And Venus and Saturn coming together in Aquarius was a big part of this, right? There's no wiggle room with Saturn. And yeah, Venus's feels, we get our feelings hurt. We get pouty in some ways. And in Aquarius, it's really easy to be cold and mean and to use our cleverness and our practicality to actually be manipulative. But I don't see that here. I see this upright as a positive thing, taking us into a present moment. So, and what is that present moment? It's the abundance. The Three of Cups. I love this card. Everybody loves this card. In the Rider-Waite Tarot, you see that this card is the three women that have their cups and they're all putting them into the middle. It's so celebratory. So, and I know that feels weird right now because we know that the bottom is dropped out and we are fully, Mars is full, it's about to come out of the degree that has, stationed in. And so it is the nosedive, right? It is no turning back. It is making the commitment and pursuing it, right? It's taking the nosedive and just going for it. And with Mars, you won't even think about it, right? You'll just do it. Especially in terms of ideas and communication. People are going to be saying things, and they are saying things, but it's going to continue to get that much more intense and certainly that, just going to be, that output of Mars, right? That engagement that is penetrating and active and an action hero. It's a warrior energy. It's a soldier coming through. So the other thing about this card is that Mercury is now direct. And it's in Capricorn. So it's opposite of the sign of Cancer where Mercury is right now. So this is bringing us back to when we overcome our fear and we are cultivating compassion in our lives, that stems ultimately from, I think, a commitment and a purity and understanding and a willingness to kind of be shaped by our loyalties, our family, right? These relationships that are so valuable to us. And so the Three of Cups, general ideas here: celebration, collaboration, friendship, finding joy and fulfillment and love, gathering and enjoying those whom you love. This was a big part of the way that I experienced the last 2 weeks in terms of being around, family. And, in-law family, of course, but still, and also family that are people that I've been friends with for a long time. This is about laughing. This is about creating. This is about sharing. And this is something that's going to take us into the next stage, is this feeling right here in the center of us. life gives us everything that we need to be happy, right? It's not about the, resources or things have to be a certain way and structured in a certain way to be happy. It's the relationships, it's our connection to life itself that gives us what we need to feel that joy, that fulfillment, right? It's just love. The universe welcomes and embraces me. This is a way to, like an affirmation. The harvest is here and it's time to celebrate. I think it's really interesting talking about the harvest, especially as we're going to see that the impact, the effect, right, of our cause and effect relationship here is the Eight of Discs, which is Sun and Virgo, right? So I also see that between now and that time of year, right, that we have to, again, be patient for what is growing, and to not necessarily get too frustrated if it's not exactly where we want it to be, because you can't harvest before you've even planted anything in the ground. And Mercury is going to be in its shadow until it gets out of the 24 to 25 degree Capricorn range. So we got some time while Mercury is still in its retrograde shadow. Okay, but this is great. I mean, I'm feeling this. And so I'm curious how people are feeling as well. So now we get into our axis of power, the King of Keys, right? This is an anchor into our confidence, our goals, our focus on our work and our career, or our contribution to society. It's very thoughtful. It's very helpful. Now, this is another court card. So there's a lot of us in this reading right now. This can indicate a heightening of resources or further career achievements, and a good time to expand your business or what you are building. Okay, so the King of Keys, I mean, this is the king of his domain. And it's interesting that he's coming back from some sort of campaign, right? There has been an active pursuit or an active campaign that is reinforcing this person's domain, their kingdom, right? This is where we are rooted. Now, it is at our root energetically. And when you look at what's surrounding it, the Light of the World and Weasel, I mean, it's going to take some real focused attention in order to tap into this, okay? Because we may not see the fruits of our labor until it's time for the fruits of our labor to be harvested, right? The Eight of Discs. This really suggests to me that, I mean, we are absolutely the monarch of our own physical material experience, the king of our own domain or our kingdom. And this is a masculine energy related to the material, but it does suggest that it's not as consciously available, perhaps, and may not be fully manifest yet. And I think that that's something that's a real strong hit that I'm getting, especially, like I said, the Weasel and the Light of the World, right? There's a part of our divine higher self that's knocking here, and that we're going to have to be very close to the ground and observant in order to access this power, or to know that we are truly very secure. And the good news is that, again, we have abundance at the heart of the matter, celebration and joy. And do I think that this is a forever? No, I don't. I do feel like that much of what that may bring about, or that feeling may be brought about by controlled demolition, okay, in order to lead us somewhere else. But in the meantime, we don't have to play necessarily we don't have to play that game. We can find that abundance in our own lives, in our own heart, and to celebrate a joy and love and fulfillment with each other, right? That is the real currency here, okay? Now, the Queen of Scrolls, another court card. Wow. In terms of our attention, where our focus is, I mean, there does seem to be a deepening understanding and wanting a deepening understanding, bringing in for more important information from our own Akash, or the Akashic record, right? From your own experience and your own karma. it helps to move through to new wisdom and understanding. She is a guide, right? The Queen of Scrolls is a guide. So there is a phase of deepening understanding and personal growth that's coming here. We're stepping through the door of knowledge. And I also, the Uranus direct and the Aquarius new moon in particular feels very connected to this card. So we're aware of this. We're being drawn to it. And when it comes to these higher energy centers and where our conscious attention is, we are aware that this is a phase of deepening understanding, personal growth, expansive learning, stepping through the door of knowledge, okay? And there's more to say about that when we get into the guidance points. And this leads us to the Sun in Virgo, first decan of Virgo, which is the 8 of Discs. And reward, recognition, abundance, patience for the harvest. Now, this is a quote that I got from the new website that I found for the Book of Thoth, or the Thoth Tarot. As you do the same task over and over, you work your way towards mastery of your craft. This is what the 8 of Discs really stands for. And through your perseverance and unwavering attention, you create success. Oh, that's very interesting. Unwavering attention, eye on the prize, right? Mastery of your craft is not entirely a mental process, although you do have to apply your mental processes to this, but it's really about patience for the natural process of fruition and maturation and knowing when to harvest. The 6th house in Virgo is where you make it or break it here, because and if you make it or break it in the 6th house in Virgo, because there's no amount of intellectualizing this process. It is really the day in, day out of doing the thing in order for it to grow and mature and to master it. So we're going to have to continue, I think, to build the skill that through repetitive tasks, through realizing the coherence between what we think and how we act on it. Everything unfolds according to the will of the universe and to God, however you conceptualize that. And it's important that we relax and trust life in the process. But that doesn't mean you're just like, well, I want these things to be this way. And you're like, if I just think about it enough or make a vision board, it's not how it works, right? You have to actually take action. And in some cases, you have to do something over and over and over without any sense that there's actually anything happening. And that's how the first decan of Virgo really goes, because all of the action is under the soil, in the soil with the root system. And what's your root system? It's Cancer, right? It is the 4th house and Cancer. It is your nadir, your root system. That is what draws the minerals out of the soil in order to grow the fruit, okay? Your mind, your intellectualization, there's another tone. Wow, it is pretty significant. Those things, when a plant is growing during the Gemini portion of the year, for instance, it is building its leaves and its stalk, right? It is building the capacity to hold what is fruit, the fruit that is growing. And what's the point of the fruit? It holds the seed for the next cycle of creation, right? This perpetual creative process. And so we can intellectualize it because that is the scaffolding or the nerve, the nervous system in some ways, like I said, the stalks, the stems, the leaves, all the greenery that the plant uses in order to photosynthesize, in order to hold the flowers, in order to hold the fruit. That's what your mind is, right? But you have to actually get down into the dirt using the connection to life, to your own soul, and do the work under the surface, gathering what you need from the enriched soil. And sometimes that's really frustrating because you want things to happen when you want them to happen, and you also don't have the patience for what is naturally unfolding. And so this also suggests that there will be a kind of a reward, like everything unfolding in according to the will of the divine source, of the great spirit, right? Of life, the law of nature. But we can help it along the way, right? We develop our skill, we practice, we master our craft through perseverance and unwavering attention, okay? And our attention is absolutely right now on the deepening phase of knowledge, right? The Queen of Scrolls, and she is a guide. So you may find that someone in your life or someone out in the public sphere kind of fills in this role that is opening the door for you, or has access to your Akashic record that you have to just step in and read. So I just feel like that this is quite amazing for all of us, considering what is really on the menu for the next month. Wow. So when we look at the guidance, like I said, the King of Keys, you have the light of the world, right? This is your higher self knocking on the door. And if you're too caught up in what you're doing, right? Here's the cat, by the way, that is letting you know, right? The Lyran aspect, Capricorn, is letting you know, like, hey, somebody's at the door here. And it's really your higher self. It's that part of yourself that's connected to Source of the Great Spirit, right? That is immortal, that is your oversoul. And is like, hey, getting your attention, right? Like, you got to open the door though. And again, the weasel, this is about being low to the ground, being silent, pay attention, observe with your senses so you can see what's happening inside of you, and that's a big one, and outside of you as well. So you want to observe from pure awareness, and you hear the messages when you connect to Source through your connection to life, right? And this requires meditation. This requires some sort of silent time, where you are meditating. Maybe you're just being, right? You're out in nature and you're not inundated with messaging or any other type of signals. It's just you with yourself and your connection to life. And I feel as if that is going to be really relevant in terms of being able to hear when your higher self is knocking, because this is a big part of where we're going to feel grounded and masterful and feel like a master of our craft, because it is absolutely at the root of us, but it may not be obvious. And there is so much infiltration right now. I mean, the two tones just in the process of this broadcast is pretty significant. So here's our meerkat, right? Get support from a trusted group of like-minded friends. And the paths unknown, the 8 of Scrolls, also another 8, it's reversed. And this does suggest some hesitancy in terms of where we're going, or you may find yourself undecided and hesitant to move in any direction. But this also suggests that there may be a need to look towards your past, to like rewind. And with Mercury now direct, but still in its shadow, now I think that this is something we can actively take. And you may find that you have to find your people, right? You got to work something out with the people you trust. And maybe you don't trust people. Maybe the last 2.5 years has really influenced your ability to trust people, because you've been betrayed, you have been tricked through controlled opposition, people just straight up lying to us, right? But this does suggest that there may need to be a journey into our own past, or into past experiences that will deepen our understanding. And we may find that the Queen of Scrolls becomes that much more available to us when we are willing to kind of push past our hesitation. And maybe we do need to check in with somebody. Maybe we need to be part of the Starseed Fellowship so that we can meet this week and on our Zoom call. So that's always an option as well. There's a lot of people in different areas of their journey. They express themselves in different ways. They have different perceptions of their soul's journey, but we all come together with respect and a willingness to share, and non-judgmental as much as possible in terms of all of our experiences and where they're going. Not everybody agrees, but we all respect each other enough to see validity and value in multiplicity of perspectives. Anyway, this seems more like we may need to tap back into where we've been. Perhaps we need to start talking to people again, or reconsider a position that we had been in, or a relationship in some ways. Either way, there has been hesitation, and this is really, giving us kind of the shove in some ways to be like, maybe you need to turn around and look at that path behind you, where the fox is, if you really want to get in, use that cleverness of the Princess of Swords. But the meerkat, I think, is just very interesting in terms of looking for your group, right? Taking the filter, look beyond the filter of your past experiences and see what your intuition says. Ooh, that's a good one. And take a chance. Allow yourself to receive love, okay? I know that it's difficult when we've been betrayed, we've been hurt, somebody has betrayed our trust, and that can be at a larger level, I would say. So in terms of, the collective and all kinds of mainstream sources, even alternative sources that turn out to just have been there to siphon money and energy off of us, there's still something to be said for getting support from a trusted group. And I think that this is going to open up and deepen our understanding in a way that maybe we wouldn't have if we didn't take the initiative to just maybe take the filter away from the past experiences and look at them with kind of that observed, passive, silent observer and witness, which is the weasel, right? So interesting that we have these two energies. This one seems to be standing upright, and then the weasel, of course, is low to the ground. So there's also a sharing that seems to be going on here for everyone. So, it's going to be an interesting week. We already have, like I said, Venus and Saturn were conjunct yesterday. We also had Uranus stationed direct in Taurus yesterday. We have a really favorable, I don't know if I can bring the video back. No, I'm still in a weird position. That's okay. I'll bring up the Galactic Center again, so you guys have something to look at if you're just listening. So Sun sextile Jupiter, the asteroid Juno or Hera, right? The wife of Jupiter / Zeus. They're conjunct, right? They were conjunct as of this weekend. I thought that was really substantial. And now that then the sun is going to come into a sextile to Jupiter. It kind of doesn't get any better than a sun sextile Jupiter. And even with the sun at its weakest, at its detriment in Aquarius, this sextile is going to have a lot of good fortune attached to it, a sense of being really backed up in, by prior precedent. And this really has a lot to do with how you are reading these things. If you are willing to shed the filter of those past experiences and see them for what they are and find the value in what has come before as a means to support where we are each going, how we're expressing ourselves, then there is lots of opportunity for us to really expand on this desire to transcend ourselves, right? To reach that state of bhakti, right? Where it's devotion, where we have a desire to transcend ourselves into a new creative endeavor. And Jupiter, of course, represents the big picture, right? The spirit of the law. It's Juno who is the actual advocate that's like, okay, these are the things that you want to do, and we want to make sure that you are getting what is in accordance to your relationship to society, or to your, the relationships you're in, whatever that energy is. Now, Juno has a strong Libra component as well. So to be in Aries like this is not her forte, but she is with her husband. They're conjunct together. I think that's really, in Aries, I think that's really significant in terms of the ways that they can influence and activate each other in terms of our action, our instinct, our desire to be, our self-worth, and the capacity that we feel and know that we will one day be able to transcend ourselves. There will be a new seed point of creation that comes from who we are right now. I love that. And so Sun sextile Jupiter, great. Amazing transit. So we'll see how that goes as well. And as we go through the week, I mean, we're going to have, let's see here. Just want to make sure that it is all good, that I'm not misspeaking. So the moon's coming into Pisces. Venus is going to come into Pisces as well this week. Mercury now direct is going to square Chiron again. And did I not say that when Chiron stationed direct and came into 12 to 13 degrees Aries that we were going to be in false flag season? And you can see that it is full on right now. And I do not relish being correct about that, but that is definitely what I saw, and now you're seeing it. So, and then our first quarter moon in Taurus is actually going to be a T-square. The sun is going to be in a T-square to the moon's nodes. That means that the moon is going to be exactly conjunct her own north or ascending node in a square to the sun. So that crisis of action, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to rectify this? Is going to be that much more intense. And then you have the sun in a trine to Mars on the 29th, and you have Mercury in a trine to Uranus. Now these are both direct, and this will be a big Lyran activation because Mercury will be conjunct Vega. So that's something that we're going to talk about in the Starseed Fellowship Plus, because that will be part of the next weekly astrology report. So hopefully by then I will be back to my full energetic capacity. So if you are waiting for a reading, if you are waiting for, if you got a free reading because you did the gift exchange, if you've paid for a reading and you're just waiting, I really appreciate your patience very, very much. And thank you for allowing me to fully recover before I engage in that work, because it's really important to be energetically balanced and restoring my own harmony so that I can do the best that I can for you in those readings, and that I am a clear channel for reading the map, right? Reading the map of your soul's journey. So my friends, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you so very much. I will see you all when I see you. In the meantime, though, I'm going to sign off and sign out. And it was a pleasure being here with you today. I really appreciate all of you so very much. I'll see you next week for the Starseed Ministry on Monday. And until then, take very good care of yourself. Keep an eye out for the new moon in Aquarius forecast for the Aquarius people. That will be put up today at some point on these platforms, and I will catch you later. Bye, guys.